You're watching Healthy Snacking 101 by Dr. Alyssa Gall on Resonance Wellness TV, part of our Nurture Natural Care series and the Whole Life Medicine Alleviate series. Keep in the loop about future webinars and events on whole-life-medicine.com. So, hello and welcome to Healthy Snacking 101. My name is Dr. Alyssa Gall, and I will be your guide this evening about all things snacky. And today's presentation is given in the context of the whole life medicine model, and also from the helping doctor mom perspective also, because we want to support parents in the raising of healthy, happy children. Alleviate is about looking at what you can do in the foundation of your health to improve. And in this case, we're talking again about dietary habits. And there's a lot of confusion in the diet world about what a healthy diet looks like and whether or not snacks work in a healthy diet. And diet is most certainly a major root cause of health issues in our step one alleviate in whole life medicine. So today I'm going to shed light on snacking, how it's best used, how you might also think about snacking for the entire family, and how you might think about it in a way that helps you incorporate it so it works for you, as opposed to just being a random snacker, which I think most people are. So I thought I would actually tell you that I don't really feel most people gain a huge benefit from what they call snacking. And I think it's not because of snacking itself, but it's how people snack that can kind of prevent it from having a benefit. The average North American eats at least 2 snacks daily. So that can actually account for nearly a quarter of daily calorie intake. So, your average adult woman, my size, so I'm 5'8", is going to have about a 2,000 calorie diet, 2,000, 2,200 for maintenance. And so that could be 500, 600 calories of snacks, sometimes more, depending on what people choose. So because snacking often ends up being such a high proportion of a calorie intake, it's really crucial to choose healthier items. Otherwise, you're going to have an unbalanced food intake. But if you do it properly, there can be a number of benefits to healthy snacking, or healthy snacking with the right timing, which we're going to discuss further. So there's 4. One of them is increased nutrient intake. And I'm going to tell you what I mean by all of these in a moment. The second is sustaining energy levels. The third is recovery from exercise. And the fourth is weight maintenance. So the first on the list is increased nutrient intake. Now, snack time is a great time, especially in children, for increasing the intake of nutrient-dense foods. So when I'm saying nutrient-dense foods, I'm talking about foods that are really providing a pretty healthy ratio of, fat, carb, and protein, and then have a whole bunch of vitamins, minerals, fibers, and other nutrients within that number of calories. So a nutrient-dense food is a food in its whole form, ideally ripe and minimally processed. So that could be vegetables or fruits. It could be a whole grain. It could be meat, seafood, eggs, beans, nuts, seeds. These are probably the categories of the nutrient-dense foods that we want to keep in mind. So in comparison, empty calorie foods, which are the foods that most people think of as snacks, are those that really offer not very much nutrient value, but they contribute a lot of calories. So examples are chips, potato chips, crackers, candies, commercial and sometimes even home-baked baked goods like muffins. And unfortunately, many of the packaged snacks, kind of quote unquote, are made for kids are in this category. We literally raise our kids on carb hits. We're going to come back to this a little bit later. So many illnesses are linked to inadequate intake of the balance of nutrient-dense foods and overconsumption of those empty calories. So we've had several webinars about different disease types and shown repetitively how crucial good dietary choices are for the majority of diseases in multiple studies over long periods of time. So we've already talked about having a variety of foods, so including the colors of the rainbow on a daily basis, and making sure, like I said, you have that protein, fat, carb balance in what you eat. So to put it simply, you can choose this healthy snack option instead of an empty calorie, and that can contribute to our health instead of burden it. The second thing to think about is sustaining energy levels. So, a higher fiber, protein rich snack is going to promote even blood sugar levels, and that's going to prevent energy crashes. It is doubly important for parents to learn to eat with their children or ahead of their children to keep their own fueling up. If you are running around children, you know how exhausted you can get. And so it's important to make sure that you eat enough as well and ahead of time, usually as well. But adults without children just as often find themselves poorly fueled in a work day or any other kind of day. It's not really a great excuse that you're too busy at work to eat or that you wait until you feel like you're going to pass out before you eat. If you don't eat properly, your brain is really not going to be working optimally. And it's literally the biggest glucose utilizer in your body. I have observed that some people will let themselves pretty much completely tank. And by the time they get home, there's just no juice left. So it's not uncommon under those conditions for people to reach for caffeine filled drinks or that sprinkly donut in the common room at work. And you can raise your blood sugar quickly that way, but it kind of gives you the illusion of an energy boost. And then when you come down off of that, you're more tired and hungry. So our blood sugar levels indicate to our brain when it's time to eat, ideally. And we need to learn how to listen because after eating, blood sugar should rise and then decrease. And as the levels dip, and you feel some of that feeling of fatigue or tiredness, that can really set in, especially if you miss the window. So snacking can help prevent levels from dropping too low between meals. And it's 100% worth it to plan ahead for what you're going to eat in a day. Everybody actually has time to do this. You only have like food, water, and air as intakes. That's it. You know, that's all you have to take in. So breathing, most of the time, wherever you go, there's going to be air. Hopefully, wherever you go, you're going to be able to find water. But it is really important to ensure that you have the right kind of food wherever you're going in the day. So it's not necessarily about finding a trendy superfood as a snack. Or it's not really about getting a refined sugar fix, but it's consuming healthy options. And so if you do that right, like I said, you can keep your energy substantively higher. Now, it also helps to snack following workouts. You can replenish energy stores and really speed up muscle recovery if you eat or have a small snack following a workout. So activities like weightlifting or running, what you're really doing when you're exercise is you're creating muscle breakdown and then build back up in the body. So even yoga will create this, along with big changes in composition of connective tissues, also made out of those same pieces. So this is how exercise produces health benefits. It helps you gain muscle, it helps you be more flexible, and it increases cardiovascular endurance. It's basically forcing your body to make adaptive repairs to a higher demand. And when you do that, you're going to need nutritive substances to allow for proper recovery. So it allows tissues to heal, leading to better overall performance over time. And that's why you build cardiovascular endurance and flexibility and muscle gain with time and practice. And it turns out the best workout recovery snacks are pretty much identical to the snack composition that works for all other snacking, which we will discuss in a moment. But what I want to point out here is that if you haven't eaten before a workout, you will need to use your snack or meal quite quickly after a workout to help with recovery. If you did eat prior to a workout, you'll likely need to create a follow-up snack or meal, time your meal, about 2 or 3 hours after that workout. So recovery can really be helped by proper snacking, and it can be impeded if you work out and then you wait too long. In a child, you will notice often, like you take the kids through that long walk through Heritage Park. Eventually, that can potentially result in a meltdown city, right? If badly timed. So, an increase in energy demand is going to create a need for food. And if you just hit that with like rice crackers, you're going to create a super cranky child. And preloading, like I said, works really well, especially for kids. So if you know you're about to go someplace where it's going to take a lot of walking, feeding them before you get there works better. Now, that's not usually the way most of us do it. honestly. I don't remember doing it exactly that way, but it actually would work better to pre-feed children and obviously stick a little bit better to whatever their scheduling is like. Now, if you also follow a child around who has a pretty varied and healthy food intake, you're going to find generally that kids only eat when they're hungry. In fact, you're going to have trouble convincing a child to eat when they're not hungry. So even when they are hungry, you won't see a young child force themselves to finish up a plate. They won't force themselves to take seconds just because they're on the table, not like the adults where they're like, oh, well, we're going to waste that. I'll just eat that, that last scoop. And I have seen parents really try to manipulate children, stuffing them really when they're like distracted. I once had a lady who literally was so concerned about her child's eating. She put an ice cube tray full of food into him by distraction. So she would let him play. And then she would, when he was kind of getting into his place, she would literally stuff like an ice cube, sized like food thing. I can't remember what it was that she was feeding him, what was in the ice cube tray at the time. And he was like 2, maybe. I mean, that poor kid had eaten a whole ice cube tray full of food by the end of the day. And he was just like exploding in poop. And people are very well meaning. They want their children to eat, but they will eat when they're hungry. No child will starve themselves to death at all. It's also that we try to like entice kids to eat by using treats. We use the word treats. And sometimes that can set you up for a lifetime of constantly creating treats in the background. But like I said, most younger kids especially have a very good sense of how hungry they are. And when a kid's hungry, you're either going to hear about it or they'll come looking for something to eat, or you'll see the meltdown. I even noticed this in my 15-year-old this weekend. We went backcountry camping, and like the concerned mother feeder also, I was like, well, are you hungry right now? He's like, no, I'm not hungry right at all at this moment. No. And I was just like, wow, he still maintains that at 15. And he will, and then he'll be like, no, now I'm hungry. Now I could use something to eat. And it could be an hour later, it could be 2 hours later. Sometimes he will miss his window and come home and just say, I'm hungry. So we always have to have snacks even for the 15-year-old, right? But adults also tend to go into meltdown, but often they fail to recognize that that's why they're having a meltdown, that they actually haven't eaten enough. They're blaming their moods on other things besides just functioning on coffee. And like I said, my experience is most adults don't have a great sense of their own hunger. In our culture, there's just so much to do. It's not uncommon for people to just run on adrenaline. And, to be fair, when you get your stress hormones and neurotransmitters going, you're going to force the body to use some stored forms of fueling to put some glucose into your bloodstream. But there is not that much quickly accessible glucose on hand as you might think. So you can find yourself at an energy deficit without realizing it. So next time you're at your desk, you set a timer to check in with your body every hour to just see how you're feeling and what the quality of your thinking energy is like. If you do this for a week, you should have a pretty good sense of when you are getting hungry. And then also note what you ate through the day and look back on what you ate and drank and how it actually makes you feel. You're going to see trends in what's happening there. So getting more in touch with what hunger feels like to you helps you reduce overeating that next opportunity, because that's when people go for that supersized fast food meal on the way home, way more calories that you actually need to relieve the hunger. And the food types that create that reactive blood glucose roller coaster ride, so eating in front of your computer, eating too quickly can numb some of those cues of what satiated feels like. So the classic thing is people get too hungry, they overeat, they don't feel great, they try some caffeine. When they get home, they're taking both from poor choices and caffeine, and then they just order takeout. And that creates problems, obviously, in weight maintenance. And a lot of people are in that set of circumstances. They just get so tired and run down from not feeding themselves properly. But a balanced snack really can curb your appetite, and it can prevent overeating in meal times. So feeling satisfied can prevent you from getting too hungry. The trick is planning. So we're going to talk about planning in just a sec, but I wanted to talk about something that kind of bugs me about this whole topic. And that is that, snack foods are kind of a made up thing. So the snack food industry has really created what you think a snack is. And they even named their industry snack food. But it's actually really more of a marketing term than an actual category of food. And this is an extension of the problem that we find, like what we find acceptable as a restaurant meal, how we think that should be designed, forgetting that what restaurants serve is what people pay for, not what makes them healthy. So on the left, I wanted to show you this a little bit. So I just picked out two examples here. On this left-hand side is the nutrition facts for a common child's biscuit. It's like a rice cracker. And I have seen many people feed their children this as a snack, quote unquote. But if you look in this white box, you tell me, does this look like a great snack to you? The marketing for this is very careful to label it as a teething pain helper that doesn't have allergens in it. That's their nutritional selling point for this cracker. So this is for 2 packs of these crackers. So that's 4 crackers. They're 4 calories. And pretty much all they have is 7% of your daily intake of carbohydrates in them. So nothing else. Like nothing else. There's basically starch and a little bit of apple juice to glue it together to make it sweet and kind of a bit shiny. So really, a 2-year-old needs about 1,000 calories. So 4 of these is 30 calories of pure starch. Your child would need to eat 120 of these to make your calorie intake. They're not a suitable, balanced snack. So it's a big concern to me. And you'd be actually astonished how much work goes into making you think you're eating something that you're not. A great example, some of the chips that have all those flavor explosions in them. So those are the foods that are trying to manipulate your brain into thinking you could expect all the other things that come with that particular flavor, even if those things are not there and all that's there is starch and cooked up oil. So you keep on eating it and you never really feel like you get a return on the flavor till you've eaten an entire bag. That's not a food addiction or a snacking problem. It's just the amazing capacity these produced foods have to manipulate your brain. So on this right-hand side, it's one of the most common chips that people eat. So this is the amount values for the serving size, which is listed as 12 chips. This is 28 grams. I have to tell you, this bag is 10 times this size. So that entire bag is probably a minimum of 1,500 calories. And as a consequence, if you ate the entire bag, there's 100% of your total fat intake in there for the day. So that's basically a small adult intake for the day. And look what it doesn't have in it. Like there's really not a lot of other stuff in this chip. It's crazy. And when you look at the ingredients list, what you'll find is predominantly corn and damaged oil, because you have to cook at a high temperature to make some of these, and then tons of artificial flavors, colors, preservative agents, because they want it to stay in the bag tasting exactly the same as it went in. There's a whole industry on how you actually manufacture this kind of snack. And if you think it's like people, actually experimenting with these beautiful natural products, a lot of the time it's not. If a food company wants something to taste like rosemary, they don't usually just put rosemary in it. They'll ask, or they'll go and look at a flavoring catalog and find the molecule, like the flavoring molecule. It might even technically be a natural molecule, quote unquote. And in this industry, there's a lot of, backroom laughter about what's a natural thing, because you can drive human behavior with some natural extracts of things as well, right? So if you take a really good look at the ingredients list on something, you'd be astonished sometimes something that you think is relatively natural isn't. And you find that when you really look at, is this an appropriate, meal substitute, you'll find that it isn't. There's no way you can justify feeding children or adults either of these things. And yet, these are two very, very common items that shall go unnamed. So, what should be included in a healthy snack is obviously a question. And I think the best answer to that is that a healthy snack is basically a mini meal. And it should follow some of the same rules as just for any other meal, like we've been talking about for several years now: a fat, a protein, and a carb mix, just smaller, but including colors, not overly reliant on starch. A healthy snack should be nutrient dense foods packed with all those vitamins and minerals and all the subcategories of things, all of those plant compounds that are so important that we've studied, like even in our chocolate lecture, as an example. So I just wanted to remind you again, like, what are the ideal proportions for your diet? And I show you guys this slide quite a bit. So this is the proportion for diet. So no matter where you are in the world or what food is found inside each of these categories, whole foods, that is, the best evidence for longevity with the least disease comes with these proportions. So that's 50% of your total daily intake, non-starchy vegetables, 25% a mix usually of high quality protein and fat. A lot of our proteins have the fat built in, but also things that are there are like, your oils. So your eggs, your meat, seafood, dairy products, oil, your tofu and other protein substitutes and nuts are all in this wedge. And then you have 12% fruit. So all of the fruits in that wedge. And in the starchy veggies and whole grains are going to be your corn, peas, potato, yam, beet, sweet potato, all the grains and all the grain products. And beans are also predominantly here. So now in a snack, it's going to be hard to pack everything off this list proportionately into 200 calories, because you really should be aiming for about 200 calories as a snack. But you can mix and match snacks to come close over the course of the day on top of what your meals are going to be. So you can see that fruit and starches is where most people will go to snack, but they're the smallest categories. So you want to make sure that your big meals either make up for that or that you're reframing what's eaten where. So obviously snacking is going to take planning, and there are some simple things that you can do to make some headway on that. One of the easiest is getting materials to make lots of extra dinner components in your weekly cooking. We've talked about this before, like batch roasting vegetables on a weekend, making maybe one bean dip per week or one soup per week, for example, to have as extra. And planning really starts at the grocery store. You want to bring your list, to avoid tempting sugary or salty things, and prep snacks or portion foods out when you return home as soon as you can. Otherwise, good intentions only make it really as far as the fridge. And by prepping the snacks before they're needed, you're just going to be way more likely to grab and pack that healthy option you put in the fridge for yourself and for your kids. So you have containers that fit into your bags for your kids or into your own bag for work. And if there's a fridge at work, you're going to put your whole week's worth in there. That works way better than trying to piecemeal sometimes. Or get a little mini fridge near your desk. You may endure some ribbing about having your little healthy snacks in the little mini fridge, but who cares? At the end of the day, it's something that you're doing for yourself and making sure that you're taking care of yourself. And if you're looking for options that, make you feel full longer, what you'll find is that we make those kind of mini meals. So you're combining that like, fat carb protein ratio, like we always talk about within these subcategories, you'll just feel more satiated. That's kind of creating foods high in fiber with all those rich in protein and a little bit of fat. Now, one of the questions I have gotten a lot when people were asking about the snack lecture was, how should it look? And as we said before, kids eat when they're hungry. It's usually really no mystery, the schedule your kid has, especially when they're young. And if you have your snacks and meals somewhat planned, you'll be prepared. And, those kinds of things are going to change over time, depending on the age of your child and even your own age and stage of life. Sometimes things will change. So for maintaining a healthy weight as an adult, a snack should probably be about 200 calories or less. So serving size and snacks frequency are important, and that's really contingent on how well you recognize what really feels good to your body. Some people find they eat at breakfast, 2 daily snacks, and then a dinner. Some people eat their breakfast late, they have a mid-afternoon snack and then dinner at home. Some people love their snack in the morning, they get a big lunch and a smaller supper. It kind of has to feel right for you. So here I'm just showing different methods of like little plate, medium plate, big plate, how people might feel most comfortable eating. Um, it has to work for you, but the total amount of what you eat has to take into consideration your body size, your age, and your activity level, right? So the average maintenance diet for most adult women is going to be about 1,600 to 2,200 calories per day as an adult. And then you have to include the snacks in the daily calorie intake. If you're eating 2,000 calories and you still feel hungry, it could be either that you're not eating the right proportions for you, or you miss the proportions a little bit, or you're eating something that's stressing your body, or potentially you're not great at digestion. And all of your little apples are not going to fall far from you as the tree. So your child may really work well with a similar pattern to you, especially if the meals and snacks are pretty balanced. But you want everything to add up to the maintenance kind of caloric load that you're looking to maintain your weight with. And like I said, changes with age. So as you age, the caloric requirements go down. You're just not as juicy usually. And most people as they get older are not as active as they would have been before. In little kids, it's astonishing how much they actually need. Like I said, a 2-year-old will need about 1,000 calories during growth and development. That's why kids can just eat forever. And it's often difficult to see a child, like a child will not normally gain weight if they're following their own body, but they actually usually eat a fair amount of calories in comparison to a fully grown adult. So the goal again here is you want to experiment a little bit. Does it feel better when you change the different sizes of things? Culturally, this changes a lot. There's lots of places in the world where the lunch meal is the largest. I put that down here as one of the options here, where lunch meal is one of the largest, the breakfast is probably the smallest, and, a dinner is late and it's kind of mid-sized. So it depends a bit on where you are, but pay attention to how you feel in your body. We just get so many interesting cultural ideas about how it's supposed to look. And, anybody who knows where their caloric intake should probably be approximately, or knows what makes them be able to maintain their weight, then if you feel like it needs to be spread out a little bit and that there's a little bit more snacking depending on what it is that you're doing, it's totally worth doing that. Otherwise, you can sometimes find yourself, like we said before, a little bit moody because you just didn't quite get what you needed. So there's lots of different ideas also for snacks. I wanted to kind of make sure that people were thinking about, okay, what sort of things could you technically use as snacks? So here's some ideas, just things that I could think of that were useful. So, lettuce wraps with leftovers in them is kind of a useful thing. So, the lettuce wrap itself, depending on what kind of lettuce you're using, may not have a ton of nutrients in it by itself, but you can use lettuce wraps to kind of wrap things without putting too much starch in them. Using, slow cooked oatmeal and combining in some egg or some plant or dairy yogurt and some berries, or like the chia overnight puddings, not a huge proportion, but 200 calories worth. A baked sweet potato with toppings, that are leftovers or vegetables or whatever you can think of to put on there. Maybe not the whole sweet potato, obviously, but, and you could slice it up and have little portions. Some people love cottage cheese with fruit. I'm not a big cottage cheese person, I have to tell you, but that actually is not a bad snack if you tolerate dairy. A white bean dip with veggie sticks, some cut apple or fruit with nut butters, a serving of soup, where it actually has some meat and vegetables in it, mini meat cupcakes. That can be extremely useful, and you can make like a dozen of them in a little muffin tin and just pop them out and they're ready if you need like little snacks. And you can put those with little vegetables and they're done. Snack. Tiny, but good. A mini quiche if you tolerate eggs. You just fill it up with veggies. Using a keto bread as a base. So if you have learned how to do that, a lot of keto breads are made with egg and almond. So if you can tolerate egg and or almond, using a keto bread is not as big of a starch hit. And it kind of serves as a base for things without using too much toast. You know, it was funny when I was looking for recipes and things to suggest, I was amazed at how many things were like, if you were like looking for recipes for snacks, how many recipes were X on toast, Y on toast, X, Y, and Z on toast. You know, people, for some reason, toast is like a snack item. And I guess, you know, if it's something that people have in their house a lot, I can imagine why that gets kind of wrapped into a snack. But it's quite interesting how many recipes literally came out with a bread base for snacks. Mini muffins, but with protein powder in it. You can actually do a keto version where you're putting some more almond flour in it, or you can get protein powders that you can just bake right into your mini muffins. And then usually if you use the right oil and you maybe bury some fruit in there, a tiny muffin will be relatively balanced. And then using a seaweed as a wrap or in soups, you know, I did mention on the diet proportion side, you do want, you know, a percentage point of salts and seaweeds in your diet. And so you can use seaweed as a wrap, and it's kind of a tasty, salty snack. So you wrap some vegetables in that, and there again, you have a little snack. So these are just some ideas. And the goal of a lot of these is you're, like I said, staying around the 200 calorie mark. And even with kids, you know, a snack that's 200 calories and a mini meal, like 5 of those, and you've fed your 2-year-old. And that's about how much they'll eat anyway. So you can take your cues, snack-wise, from your kids. But I thought it would also be kind of nice if you had some more recipes. So on the side there, there's a Bitly app. So here, if you're not familiar with the Bitly app, it's just a way of like shortening a URL. But if you enter this URL, https bit.ly, that's an ly, and then /WLM snacks, you're actually going to come up on a page of 23 recipes. So this is what that's going to look like when you get there. So I just basically took a whole like 24, I think there's almost 24 recipes here of various things that you can do that where the portion size comes out to around 200 calories. And there was just like a whole bunch of different ideas there. So you can see here, you can't really see all 24 recipes on here, but the 24 recipes include the avocado salsa sardine plates, a smoked salmon egg cup, mini potato crusted quiche, mushroom and chestnut soup, a lentil masala soup, a cheeseburger soup, meatloaf cups, like I was talking about before, that keto mini quick bread, the recipe for that is there, green pea and mint sunflower dip, air fryer salt and vinegar kale chips. You can make chips out of kale instead of potato. Vanilla matcha protein balls. So people have often seen like power balls. Now, one of those power balls is usually going to be about 200 calories, but if you have some of those made up, they're like healthy options with good things in them that will satisfy a snack crisis. There was also a beef jerky snack plate and celery with the classic peanut butter and raisins, and a pear pumpkin seed chocolate plate. You get the idea. There's all these different ideas there that you can just go over to that and grab that for your own reference. So I'm hoping that gives you a little bit of an idea. So I'm going to, if you have questions with that, you just let me know. If you're having trouble getting a hold of that. But if you enter this entire web address, you should actually see this pop up for you. Okay. Okay. So Lorene had a question. Usually eating 4 ounces of fruit after the meal for a total of 8 ounces a day. If you snack, should you have an ounce or two of fruit after the snack and have less after your main meals? Sure. I mean, if you're kind of just trying to keep your 8 ounces of fruit going, would you kind of put it out in difference? I might do that, but I might also put something else with it, Lorraine. I mean, one of the magics about putting a meal together with the fruit at the end is that you're basically creating a mini meal, right? So the goal is, can you create a mini meal? So if you wanted to pull an ounce of fruit and, an ounce of protein and some veg on the side of that to make a little mini version of that, that would probably work best. But just eating things by themselves it's not always great. As you can see from some of these snack ideas, we want to kind of create something a little bit more rounded and then put that in the context, but try not to just put sugar risk, like a raspberry is an example. Like, let's just take the example of fruit. If you put 5 raspberries on a plate, that'd be probably just under an ounce, 5 big raspberries. So that is not very many calories. It's not really going to be a sustainable snack by itself. Does that make sense? So it's just not big enough of an item. Now, if you did that and you tolerated nuts and you put, 10 almonds beside that or something, like an ounce or two of that combination would probably be okay. But just by itself, it would be like nothing. It'd be like a nothing snack. It'd be like decorative, where it's not really fueling you, I think. Does that make sense? Oh, you mean fruit after the actual snack? Oh, sorry. That was in the chat. I was in the Q&A box. So after you've eaten something else, not fruit alone. Yeah, you can put them all together, but make it in like a little mini meal, fruit as part of the snack at the same time. Right? Is that what you mean? I think I answered the question. I hope. So I'm hoping that you guys go and check out all those snacks and that you can think about, like, how do I do this and plan for it to make it work well. I think it's totally possible to do this. Like I said, I think with kids especially, it's really crucial to learn how to do it for kids. Sorry, Lorraine. So do you need the fruit after the snack? Do you need the fruit after the snack? No, not if your snack is protein, fat, carb, whatever that looks like for your snack. Okay, so we still have quite a few webinars planned out, because remember, May to June is the webinar season. So this month we're actually going to do functional approach to metabolic syndrome. So that's basically what happens when you start to slide down into the blood sugar regulation and blood lipid dysregulation basket. Also, we are going to have, by the end of the year, brain-based wellness. And then next year, these are the 2 things I've got planned, just deconstructing cravings and the power of plants. And I also obviously have still some helping Dr. Mom. So this was one that it was under Dr. Mom. So some people were confused because they didn't know where to book. It wasn't in the place that they were used to looking, but it was because it was originally planned for the Dr. Mom people. So I hope that helps you. And once again, I always love it when you guys turn up to learn. It's the most inspiring thing ever to help people learn that want to learn. So hopefully that gave you a whole bunch of ideas about snacks, and you're going to go and get all of those recipes and try them this week in the context of your diet. So if you have further questions. Thanks for watching. I love to connect to my patient community to inform and inspire, and I hope you'll join us again in the near future. Don't forget to check out whole-life-medicine.com for more webinars and events.